I have been a trail closure enforcement ranger in the Yellowstone backcountry for 11 months. I work the overnight shift on the restricted trail network in the southern Yellowstone wilderness, the sections that do not appear on any public map, the ones with the faded orange signs that say closed, restoration in progress, and have said that for longer than anyone currently employed by the Park Service can remember. My name is Daniel Reeves. I am writing this because my supervisor told me to write it, and because whoever takes this position after me deserves to know what the job actually is before they show up for their first shift. The first thing they tell you in orientation is that screams after 11 in the evening are not your responsibility. They do not say it that way exactly. What they say is, reported distress sounds occurring after 2,300 hours in zones 4 through 9 fall outside standard response protocol and should be logged for morning review by the incident assessment team. That is the official language. What it means in practice is that you do not go toward the sound. You do not radio for a rescue team. You log it, you note the direction, you note the duration, and you keep walking your assigned route. I asked about this during orientation. The ranger who ran orientation was a man named Calloway, maybe 55, with the kind of stillness that comes from having decided a long time ago not to be surprised by anything. He looked at me for a moment after I asked. Then he said, "The response protocol exists because of what happens when you respond." He did not elaborate. I did not ask him to. My assigned route covers 14 miles of closed trail across zones 6, 7, and 8, running from the Beckler River corridor in the south up through a stretch of high plateau that the Park Service maps label as unstable terrain. Survey pending. The survey has apparently been pending since 2009. I do not ask about the survey. The trails in my zone are physically present. They are maintained, which is the part that took me a while to accept, because if the trails are closed to the public, someone is maintaining them, and that someone is not me, and no one in my chain of command has ever acknowledged doing it. The surfaces are clear. The drainage is functional. The trail markers are clean and legible. Every morning when I begin my shift at 8 in the evening, the trails look like trails that people use regularly. By the time I finish at 6 in the morning, they look the same way. Nothing accumulates. Nothing degrades. There are 11 rules for working this zone. They were handed to me on a single laminated card on my first day. I have the card memorized. I am writing the rules here because the card does not explain them, and I have spent 11 months developing explanations of my own that I believe are more useful than no explanation at all. Do not leave the trail surface between 11 in the evening and 4 in the morning. I have tested the edges of this rule twice, both times accidentally, both times stepping off the packed dirt onto the adjacent ground for less than 5 seconds. The first time, nothing happened that I could identify. The second time, I heard my own footsteps continuing on the trail ahead of me for about 8 seconds after I had stopped moving. When I stepped back onto the trail, the sound stopped. Do not use your flashlight to illuminate the tree line directly. Sweep it across the trail surface only. Keep the beam low. I followed this rule instinctively from the first night, because something about the tree line in zones 7 and 8 made me not want to look at it directly. After about 3 months, I understood why. The trees in this section of the backcountry do not have consistent shadows. The shadows fall in directions that have no relationship to the light source. If you illuminate the tree line, you will see this, and once you have seen it, you will spend the rest of your shift trying to work out the geometry of it, and you will not be able to, and the distraction will compromise your route timing. Keep the beam low. Do not count the trail markers out loud. This one I still do not fully understand. I follow it. If you find a personal item on the trail, Photograph it, note the location, and keep walking. Do not pick it up. Do not move it. Do not attempt to identify the owner. In 11 months, I have found a child's shoe, a compass with a cracked face, a coil of blue nylon rope arranged in a neat spiral, and a journal with no writing inside it. All of them were gone by the time I circled back on my return route. I have the photographs. The items in the photographs look slightly different from what I remember seeing with my eyes. Not dramatically different. Slightly. The shoe in the photograph is on the wrong foot from what I remember. The rope in the photograph is white, not blue. If you hear your name spoken from off the trail, maintain your pace and do not alter your route. I heard my name for the first time on the 19th night of my posting. Male voice, calm, conversational, from somewhere in the tree line to my left, calling my name the way a coworker calls your name across a parking lot. I maintained my pace. I have heard it 43 times since then. It is always male. It is never the same voice twice. Some of the voices I recognize. I have not tried to figure out which ones and from where. That way leads somewhere I do not want to go. If a section of trail appears to end before it should, stop walking, close your eyes, and count backward from 30. Do not open your eyes before you reach 0. When you open your eyes, the trail will continue. This happened to me on the 31st night. I was in Zone 7, a section I had walked 30 times without incident, and the trail simply stopped. Not a dead end, not a fork. The surface ended, and beyond it was dark ground with no path forward. I closed my eyes and counted. When I reached 0 and opened them, the trail was there, continuing exactly as it should. I do not know what would have happened if I had walked forward while the trail was absent. Do not respond to screams after 11 in the evening. I want to be precise about what the screams sound like, because I think precision matters here. They do not sound like movie screams. They do not sound like someone performing distress. They sound like someone who has been frightened past the point where they are thinking about how they sound. They come from different directions on different nights. Sometimes from the Beckler corridor to the south, sometimes from the high plateau to the north, sometimes from directly adjacent to the trail, close enough that my instinct in the first weeks was to stop and call out. I did not call out. I logged the time and the direction and kept walking. I have 47 logged entries for screams in 11 months. The incident assessment team has never followed up on a single one of them. I stopped expecting them to around month 4. Here is what I have come to believe about this job, and I want to be clear that this is my interpretation and not official Park Service doctrine. The closed trails in zones 6 through 8 are closed because something uses them. Not occasionally, regularly. The maintenance that keeps the surfaces clear is not performed by the Park Service. The trails are kept because they are needed, and they are needed by something that has been using this corridor longer than the park has existed. My job is not to prevent access to the trails. My job is to be present on the trails in a specific, rule-governed way that keeps whatever uses them moving through, rather than stopping. A consistent human presence following consistent patterns apparently discourages the kind of lingering that causes problems. Calloway told me on my last day before he transferred out that the worst incidents in this zone all happened during gaps in overnight coverage. He did not tell me what the incidents were. He said, "The coverage matters more than the ranger. Any ranger who follows the rules is sufficient." Then he looked at me and said, "You follow the rules well." I took that as the highest compliment I have ever received in this profession. I complete my route every night in 4 hours and 50 minutes. I have not been late once. I have not broken any of the 11 rules Since the 2 accidental trail edge incidents in my first month, I have logged everything. I have responded to nothing after 11. Whoever you are reading this, whatever Calloway or someone like Calloway told you about this job before your first shift, I want you to hear it plainly from someone who has done the work. The screams are real. The voices are real. The things you will see at the edges of your flashlight beam, in the peripheral distance moving parallel to you through the trees at a pace that matches yours, those are real too. You do not respond to them. You do not acknowledge them. You walk your route, you follow your rules, and you make it to 6 in the morning. That is the job. That is all the job is. Do it well. I want to tell you about the 48th night, because I think it is the most instructive night I have had in this posting, and because it is the night I came closest to breaking a rule in a way that was not accidental. I was in Zone 7, midway through my route, at approximately 12:40 in the morning. The night was clear, cold enough that my breath was visible in the beam of my flashlight, the kind of cold that makes the backcountry feel smaller than it is, the sound traveling differently, the distances compressing. I had just logged a scream at 12:32, direction southwest, duration approximately 8 seconds, and I had kept walking as I always did. But this one was different from the others in a way I am still not entirely comfortable describing. It stopped mid-sound, not the way a scream stops when someone runs out of breath or when the source moves out of range. The way a sound stops when someone turns it off. An immediate, total cessation with no decay, no trailing echo, nothing. One moment it was there, and the next moment the forest was as quiet as it had been before. That kind of silence is not natural. Natural silence has texture, insect sound, wind in the canopy, the small adjustments of animals going about their night. This silence was the absence of all of that simultaneously, like the forest had been paused. I kept walking. I kept my beam low. I did not look at the tree line. At 12:44, I heard footsteps behind me on the trail. I want to be precise again because precision is the only tool I have for communicating what this job is actually like. The footsteps were on the trail surface, the same packed dirt I was walking on, approximately 20 feet behind me, matching my pace exactly, not following me with a slight delay the way an echo follows sound, matching me, step for step. When I slowed, they slowed. When I maintained pace, they maintained pace. There is no rule about footsteps behind you on the trail. The laminated card does not address this. I spent about 30 seconds running through the 11 rules looking for something applicable and found nothing. So I did what the rules implied I should do in any situation they did not explicitly cover, which was to maintain my route and not alter my behavior. The footsteps continued for 6 minutes. Then they stopped, with the same total immediacy as the scream, no trailing sound, no fade. I did not look back. I logged the duration and the time, and kept walking. When I reached the northern terminus of my Zone 8 section and turned to begin the return route, I looked back down the trail for the first time. It was empty in both directions as far as my flashlight reached. I noted this and began the return. On the return pass through Zone 7, at approximately 1:50 in the morning, I found something new on the trail. Not a personal item in the way I had found items before. This was different. It was a laminated card, the same dimensions as my 11 rule card, lying face up in the center of the trail surface. My flashlight caught it from 10 feet away. I could read it clearly from that distance without approaching. It had rules on it. Not my 11 rules, different rules, more rules. I counted 12 lines of text from where I was standing. The font was the same as my card. The format was the same. but the content was not anything I had been given. The fourth rule from my card says to photograph personal items and keep walking. This was not exactly a personal item. It was a document. It was information. I stood on the trail and looked at it for a long time, weighing what I was looking at against what the rules asked me to do. And I made a decision that I believe was correct, but that I also believe carried a cost I am still paying. I photographed the card. Then I kept walking. When I got back to my vehicle at the trailhead at 6 in the morning, I sat in the driver's seat for 20 minutes before I looked at the photograph. The card was legible in the image. I read it 3 times. What follows is what it said, reproduced as accurately as I can manage. Supplemental Guidelines, Zone 7, Night Personnel. 1. The route you walk is not incidental. The specific path, the specific timing, and the specific behavioral constraints you follow generate a pattern that functions as a boundary condition. Deviation from the pattern does not simply break a rule. It creates a gap in the boundary at the location and time of the deviation. 2. The footsteps you hear behind you are not following you. They are practicing the route. They are learning the pattern from the inside. This is why you do not turn around. Turning around constitutes acknowledgement, and acknowledgement constitutes invitation. 3. The screams you hear after 2,300 hours are not produced by humans in distress. They are produced by the boundary itself when pressure is applied to it from the other side. The pitch and duration of a scream corresponds to the intensity of the pressure at that location. A scream that stops mid-sound indicates that the pressure found a gap and moved through it. Note the location carefully. 4. The items you find on the trail are left as tests of the rule about not touching them. Every ranger who has picked up an item has not completed their posting. This is not coincidence. 5. The trail markers you see are not placed by the Park Service. Do not look at them directly after 2 in the morning. Read them in your peripheral vision, only if you need to confirm your location. 6. If you find this card, you have been in this posting long enough to receive this information. You were given it because you follow the rules. Continue to follow them. There is one additional rule that was not on your original card. Do not complete your route in less than 4 hours and 40 minutes. The pattern requires a minimum duration to function. If you arrive at your terminus early, slow your pace on the return. Do not stop. Do not speed up to compensate. Maintain a pace that brings you to the trailhead at exactly 6 in the morning or later. 7. You are not alone on this trail in the way that you think you are alone. There is one other presence on the route every night that is neither a threat nor a test. It maintains the sections of trail you do not cover. You have not seen it because it works ahead of you and behind you, and never occupies the same section simultaneously. If you ever see it, do not speak. Raise one hand briefly and lower it. Then continue walking. This is the correct acknowledgement. 8. When your posting ends, leave your laminated card at the Zone 7 midpoint marker. It will be collected. A new card will be left for your replacement. You will not need to brief them directly. The card will do it. I have read this photograph every day since the 48th night. I have followed the additional rule about timing. I have slowed my pace on 3 occasions when I was running ahead of schedule. Each time, arriving at the trailhead at exactly 6 in the morning felt less like punctuality and more like permission. On the 61st night, I saw the other presence. It was in Zone 6, the southernmost section of my route, at approximately 9:40 in the evening, just before the 11 o'clock threshold when the rules become most important. It was ahead of me on the trail by about 80 yards. moving away from me at a pace slightly faster than mine. It was man-shaped in the way that a coat hanging on a hook is man-shaped. The proportions were close enough that in daylight I might have taken it for a person. In the dark, with my beam low and the figure at the edge of my flashlight range, it was simply a shape that moved the way a person moves, but generated no sound on the trail surface and cast no shadow on the ground ahead of it. I raised one hand and lowered it. I kept walking. The shape continued ahead of me and then turned off the trail into the tree line without slowing, disappearing between the trunks without any of the sounds that entry into dense, backcountry timber produces. No branch movement, no ground disturbance. It was there, and then it was not. I noted the time and the location and the duration in my log. In the notes column, I wrote, "Correct acknowledgement made. No response received. Trail surface in Zone 6 shows evidence of recent maintenance. Drainage cleared. Surface debris removed. Someone or something is doing this job alongside me every night. Has been doing it, I suspect, for much longer than 11 months. I do not know what it is. I do not need to know. What I know is that the trail is maintained, and the boundary holds. And every morning I reach the trailhead at 6 in the morning, and the backcountry is still the backcountry, and whatever lives in the pressure on the other side of the boundary is still on the other side. I have 3 months left in this posting. I will leave my laminated card at the Zone 7 midpoint marker on my last night. I will walk out at exactly 6 in the morning. I will not look back. Do not look back.